Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me today, my good friend and colleague, my best pal, the 1B to my 1A, or 1A to 1B. Are we interchangeable? I think we're both starters here. Brian E. Roach. What's going on, my friend?
Yeah, I like being an or. I'm good with being an or. It's a beautiful day, you know. Hey, look, my life's been going swimmingly because we're 1-0, and I get to watch the game again, and I'm happy.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about, the or designation will come into play here at some point during this program. There was some football last night to watch, if you call it that. I don't know, man. I don't know what to think about. Obviously, I would like to see one of those two teams lose. I'm not sure what to think about either one of them. My thoughts being on the Browns and Bengals Thursday night football game. And for those of you who tuned in and watched it, I don't know that it was necessarily a shining example of great football. They got the 65 points combined, 35-30. There were a couple ugly turnovers in the game and whatnot. I'll say this much. I don't know that I necessarily these two teams will be more competitive than what we're used to as Steelers fans against the Steelers this season. But
do you think?
Well, hold on.
I'm not convinced of that. I'm absolutely not convinced of that. I think based on watching that game, it looks like the Browns might be able to run the ball, but the Steelers have a solid, good run defense. And I don't think either one of them is going to be able to protect their quarterbacks. So,
no chance. That's where I was going to go with that. There's quite a bit of footwork between Joe Burrow and Baker Mayfield. Joe looks he looks settled in, but he's not. He's running for his life many times. They have trouble running the ball, and the Bengals are one of the goofiest teams. For anybody who plays fantasy football, I made this comment in the backrooms last night. What was it? The tight end Uzoma, who got hurt, had a touchdown. Gio Bernard had a touchdown, and some guy named Mike Thomas. When they have four other wide receivers, they drafted T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd has a huge contract. They franchise tagged AJ Green, who's always a Pro Bowler, other than he's been hurt, and that first round pick John Ross that's never really panned out for them. And that's who they throw the ball to. It's odd to me. It's just a very odd team. I think last night the Bengals pretty much lose because they're traveling on a short week, first Thursday night game of the year, too. That all benefits the Browns. Their defense, the Bengals, that is. Well, the Browns, too, but the Bengals' defense isn't all that sharp. They're missing Geno Atkins, and they were just gassed in that fourth quarter. They couldn't stop anything when it came to the run, and you got the Browns coming in with the hammer one and hammer two with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But you make a great point. That was one thing I was going to say was not only will they pressure those quarterbacks, I think they'll bottle up the run. I'm definitely not afraid of Joe Mixon in any combo of him or Gio Bernard for sure. And then on the Browns end, like I said, maybe a little more competitive, but if they force Baker to throw, it's, anytime that guy gets pressure, he's almost Andy Dalton all over again. Just throw it wherever.
That's so mean.
It is mean. But, well, I was talking about this with a friend too. Do you think the Bengals made the right decision? How can you not draft Joe Burrow after the college season he had? I mean,
I think Burrow looks pretty good. I'm not, realistically, for what he's doing so far, he looks like he belongs. I don't know that it looks like he's necessarily going to be the next coming of whatever,
David Klinger.
All-pro quarterback you want to name, but
no, he wasn't.
Give him time to grow. The downside of that is, he's still going to be running for his life behind that offensive line for a while. At least he's got a little bit of mobility. But I think, I'm not upset. If you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan, first of all, I'm sorry for you anyway. But you shouldn't be upset that they picked Joe Burrow. I think that was the right decision for sure.
Yeah, I mean you're looking at him. His floor can't be any worse than probably Andy Dalton on an average day, or even his ceiling. So.
I think his floor is better than Andy Dalton on a good day.
Yeah, it's just his supporting cast, and unfortunately, that defense is still going to be a work in progress. It looks like they spent a lot of money on the secondary. I thought they would, bottle up the Browns receivers. I'm still not convinced that Odell was in the end zone on that touchdown. Not only that. That the ball that got delivered to him, I'm like, Troy Aikman's like, that's just a perfect ball, man. Odell had to put on the brakes and go to the ground to make sure he secured and caught that. That wasn't necessarily the prettiest combination in the world, and he just beat William Jackson so bad. You remember everybody, we were all up in arms about, well, we wanted William Jackson. They took William Jackson ahead of Artie Burns. Well, yep. I don't know that the William Jackson experiment's working out that well either, but, it's still Odell Beckham, so...
it's early.
Yeah, it's still early, and it's just one of those things that... I don't know. I don't know what to make a whole lot of it. You know what I mean? I think the running game there's the big thing. The tight ends, I don't even know what's going on with it. They're like the Ravens, so with all these tight ends too. It's like, who are they getting the ball to? They're paying Hooper a bunch of money, but I digress. That's enough about the AFC North guys. I just thought I would cover it since it was the game last night, and those are some future opponents to keep an eye on. You got some young quarterbacks that the Steelers have been facing too, so we're gonna be looking at that ahead here for Sunday's game as well. But before we do that too, just a little bit of a note, and as you know, we don't really like to get into too much of anything political here, but obviously the NFL has a lot of political things, a lot of stuff that's going on when it comes to social justice and a lot of their other campaigns and efforts. And there was a little bit of controversy that came up since the last time you and I spoke, Brian, and it had to do with Alejandro Villanueva. The whole team went and they decided they were going to put Antoine Rose's name on the back of their helmets. The NFL is permitted to put statements or victims on the helmets. Steelers are very unified. I thought if you have any reason to complain about the way that they handled what they did Monday night, then just do like everybody's promising to do and just shut it off. I mean, just there's nothing you could be upset about there. I thought that was the most tasteful and classy way to address the issues of today across every segment and demographic that's out there. I thought the Steelers did an excellent job in how they handled things Monday night. Now, on top of that, Alejandro Villanueva puts a Silver Star recipient, the man Alan Cash. It was a guy in the military. You know what? I got to pull this up because I have it somewhere, and now I'm going to totally screw this up, and I don't have it in front of me, of course. So the one thing, he had a different name than the other players, and right. There was a little bit of a rumbling as to whether some guys knew it, some guys didn't. Well, Cam Hayward said he didn't know about it. Okay, that's fine. Cam Hayward don't necessarily share the same locker room space or maybe run in the same circles. These guys aren't on top of each other as much as they used to be with all the COVID stuff too. So perhaps he is out of the loop, but it's not like Villanueva went lone wolf here, went rogue. I got the quote from Mike Tomlin from the presser on Tuesday, and he said, yes, he did discuss that with me. This is in line with everything we said about participating in elements of social justice this offseason. We are going to support our players in however they choose to participate and express themselves or to not participate or not express themselves, as long as they do so thoughtfully and with class. And so that is a blanket approach that we have had. I think it needs no further explanation in terms of our support for Al Villanueva or anyone else in terms of what they do or do not do in terms of social justice, as long as they adhere to the outline that I just outlined for you. That is the full quote, direct from the Steelers, from the pool report or whatever you want to call it for that press conference. If you read anything else that's trimmed down, and we posted this on our social media too, you read this anywhere else, people have taking words out of this, and everyone's just trying to get your clicks and views. Go straight to the source. It's right there. He had permission from Mike Tomlin. Whether that's translates to teammates being upset or unknowing, that's a whole other separate issue. Mike Tomlin is the head coach. He's the one running the ship here. So if he says it's okay for Alejandro Villanueva, all the other guys got to pretty much suck it up, or they got to go to the coach and express their own feelings to him. And I don't know that he's got so many other things on his plate, and then he has to handle all of this too. I could only imagine being in his shoes. So if you hear anything else on that, that's pretty much where it is. Marquise Pouncey had some comments too, because Marquise Pouncey is on both sides of this issue as not only African American, but also having worked a lot with law enforcement. So if you care to read any of his comments, he has those out on his social media platforms as well, detailing all of this. Brian, I'm going to find the name here real quick while I get your thoughts on this, because I had it up and I lost it, which, that's par for the course with me.
Yeah. Look, this is to me, this is people just looking to complain about something. It's not that the name of the person that Big Al put on the back is all controversial. It's not even that his choice to not necessarily do the same thing as the rest of the team is even all that controversial. It's just silliness. It's silliness. It's, I want to complain. I want to find something wrong. I'm going to pick on this. And then they do. And I don't understand the need for that. But somebody wants to be offended, go ahead and be offended and stop watching the games. I agree with your statement there. If this is if what the Steelers chose to do in any way, shape, or form, triggers some internal issue within you, then yeah, maybe you shouldn't be watching football. Maybe you actually should probably become a hermit. I don't know.
Well, I won't
get away from society altogether, because you got issues.
I won't lie. I mean, I pretty much don't watch anything with SportsCenter and that anymore, and I think a lot of that has to do with it doesn't necessarily have to do with whatever other non-sports or tying it to sports topics. It's just I don't care about the other sports anymore. Baseball. Basketball, I don't, and hockey's been dead to me since the Pens dropped out immediately, because they had to lose to the worst team in the tournament. So it's been football the whole way for me going forward. Now, Alwyn Cash, Sergeant First Class, passed away November 8th, 2005. He was posthumously awarded the Silver Star for his heroism in Iraq, and there's been some controversy around it. Discussing an upgrade, prompting. Cash's award is controversial, prompting significant subsequent debate and discussion of an upgrade of his award to the Medal of Honor. Now, you want to know what's been in the news almost immediately following Alejandro Villanueva putting his name on his helmet? This discussion, the ball's gotten rolling again. So we're talking 2005, the guy passed away. It's been 15 years. And Villanueva, and I'm not sure if he had a relationship with Cash or his family or anything of that nature. I don't know those details. He seems to be very reserved. But isn't this the whole idea that you're drawing, attention to certain issues? That's the whole purpose of doing this, and that's what he did. So, I have nothing further to say about that, and keep it clean in the comments is all that I'm going to say. It just irked me that we had some clickbaity stuff that was out there, even a day or two after Tomlin already addressed the problem. I mean, we're talking this game was Monday night. There wasn't a big open window to throw all of this sensationalism at this topic and try and make it more controversial and hot so people can look and you could get your ad revenue. It went from Monday night, they got on a plane, Tomlin was at the press conference at noon. You know what I mean? So Anybody who picked up on this, they're just trying to clickbait you. They're just trying to keep egging it on. So other than that, I got nothing else to say about it. It's just another one of those things. Somebody tried to compare it to the Antonio Clown. I almost just said the clown, but I had to emphasize that. No, I don't think Alejandro Villanueva is a locker room headache at all. I think there's quite a few people
silly.
That look up to him and respect him. And, I doubt he's a diva, and I don't think he's going to be throwing furniture out of like a second story window or anything of that nature, driving 130 miles an hour down McKnight Road and whatnot. So that's not necessarily all exclusive to Mr. Big Checks, Mr. No Checks now, I think. So, but
my preference is for how Vince Williams handled this. Is basically, I don't care. Did he block guys? Yes. Did Ben get hurt?
Yeah.
No. Shut up.
yeah. That's always great too. You get the exact comments like that, and that's what I thought. Like with Pouncey, a lot of people that are just casual fans don't realize the locker room leader that he is. But not only that, you go back, this guy's like an OG type. Him and his twin brother. Those aren't the kind of guys I would want to mess with necessarily on the field or off of it. And he is a locker room leader. And when he says something, you better believe that your ears perk up, your eyes open, and you shut your mouth and listen. That's the type of guy that Marquise Pouncey is. So anyways, there is a football game. I don't think, no matter what, and I said this is the midweek distractions that, there's not enough other stuff to talk about that everyone comes up with. We've already gone 15 minutes. We're not even talking about the game that's coming up yet. But that's because we only talk about that for 5. So, Denver Broncos, we just got done talking about the Browns and the Bengals. I don't really know how to classify them much any different than those two teams. We're talking about a team that's lost Von Miller. They may get 2 of their wide receivers back. They didn't have Cortland Sutton Monday night. They didn't have was KJ Hamler the one that was hurt too? So there's they lost Philip Lindsay. Well, they had a 1A and 1B back system here too when it came to hammering the ball. Now it's only Melvin Gordon. They have Rolls-Royce too, Royce Freeman. I didn't even know he was still in the NFL. That was another one of these guys they drafted, and you're expecting him to rise to the occasion. But you look at another team with a second-year quarterback in Drew Lock, a lot of young or unproven weapons all around him, other than Cortland Sutton, who I wouldn't say is entirely proven, but he had a good he had a decent year last year. He had a lot of he flashed it many times. But I look at this offensive line, Brian. Garrett Bowles, Dalton Reisner, Lloyd Cushenberry, Graham Glasgow, Elijah Wilkinson. Man, I don't see how the Steelers defense doesn't eat this team alive too. Drew Lock, when he had the ball where it needed to be, he had guys dropping it like Jerry Jeudy had a couple big drops in that game. Noah Fant, their tight end that they drafted last year, pretty high, non-existent in the pass game there too. Melvin Gordon had a game, but you look at what the Steelers did to Saquon Barkley on Monday, and you got to think to yourself, the Steelers aren't traveling. This is kind of almost the West Coast team with the Broncos. They got to come over for a 1:00 game at Heinz Field. No fans, so that part of it kind of sucks. There's no advantage there. But maybe the fatigue of a later Monday night game coupled with some of these injuries, whether guys they just lost or guys that are returning that haven't been, they got to get on the same page real quick. I think this is a nice recipe for disaster for the Broncos that the Steelers could take advantage of.
Yeah, I'm not. Look, I'm looking at this and thinking to myself, the Broncos offensive line gave up no sacks last week. Not that Tennessee is the epitome of the greatest sacking team in the NFL, but the fact that they didn't give up any sacks, is a good a stat for them. Now, do I think that it's the same competition that they're going to have here? Do I think they're going to be able to that they're going to run against a team like the Steelers and the Steelers are going to be more Tennessee-like and focus mostly on running the ball? Probably not. So there's going to be more opportunity. The Broncos are probably going to have to be throwing the ball to stay at pace with the Steelers, which means there's going to be more opportunity for them to give up a sack or two.
Or 5 or 6.
Yeah,
well, they didn't give up any to the Titans, which was surprising. Yeah, but then again,
yeah, that's what I mean. They gave up none.
But it's Clowney, and he just showed up.
I understand that, and that's why I said I don't think the Titans are necessarily right at this point the same kind of threat that the Steelers are. But you do have to look at it and say they didn't give up any. And they've invested in this offensive line. There's some guys in there. Garrett Bowles has been limited in practice. He's got an elbow issue. So whether he's going to be available or not, I don't know. Usually that he'll probably play, but we'll see. You talked about Cortland Sutton; he's still limited too. He didn't play last week, and he's got a shoulder injury, and he's still limited. Whether he ends up playing or not, we'll see. Look, I'm a little already. When you look at the Steelers' defensive line versus this offensive line, Stephon Tuitt did not participate on Wednesday. Was he a full participant on Thursday? Yeah, he was. All right, so never mind. I had to look at the injury report because it was going to scare me. I was going to be like, oh, come on.
Yeah, the Steelers didn't even update their injury report on the media end. They still had the Wednesday stuff up. I'm like, come on, man. It's like, yeah. And Zach Banner's on there, and it's like he's on IR. I mean, come on, yeah.
Yeah. But at full capacity, I feel like the advantage should certainly be with the Steelers. I think their defense. I mean, all the accolades that the Witches Brew group of people from PFF have thrown out there for the Steelers has been dramatic. The most pressures and TJ Watt is the highest rated pass rusher, and Bud was still really good, and everybody, oh my gosh, it was amazing, everything fantastic. 7 billion pressures in 37 seconds or whatever the hell they I just imagine, and not to make the professor feel bad because I know he's a PFF employee.
Yeah, he's not even like a truther. He's just he can't speak ill of Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah, but I sometimes I just imagine the little guys sitting in there with a tape and a stopwatch going click click. Oh, he was fast. Click click. And I don't know. They just make stuff up.
By the way, it was 22 pressures. PFF said for the Steelers. The second most was 14 by the Chargers. So. And the thing is, all the teams that were top 5 in pressures, their opponents that they played are all teams that the Steelers will play this year. So that's also a very encouraging thing to see.
Yeah, you can't have watched the game on last Monday and not have noticed that the Steelers are getting pressure, and not just from TJ and Bud. Ola's getting in there, Alex Highsmith's getting in there. Tuitt's getting pressures. Tyson Alualu is getting pressure in the middle. Cam's getting pressure. They're all getting pressure. So it's encouraging. I think that definitely bodes well for the Steelers. On the line from the offensive side, you definitely just have to give the advantage to the Steelers defensive line and outside linebackers over the Broncos offensive line. I think that's a good sign. I would expect that the Broncos offensive line and Drew Lock will not end up clean at the end of this game.
No, that's exactly my point. And they still had Kamalei Correa got a couple hits in on quarterback hits in. Harold Landry did. Clowney got one. So it's not as if there was zero pressure. But the other thing that doesn't bode well either is they allowed Ryan Tannehill to pass the ball 43 times for 249 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. Broncos defense is kind of looking like maybe the mid 2010 Steelers defense. You know what I mean? Like when you're getting into 2014 or 2015 when they couldn't force any turnovers. There's a big to-do over on the Denver Broncos website. I think there was an article about that. Specifically, I forgot who they interviewed, and they were talking to some of their defensive players, just the same way you'd see it on Steelers.com, and they're saying, hey, we got to do something here and get the ball turned over because there just wasn't a whole lot going on. I mean, Derrick Henry, 31 attempts, 31 rushes for 116 yards. It's only a 3.7 average. It was kind of it was pedestrian for a little bit there for him. He did break off like 1 or 2 bigger ones. And when he does, he looks like the kid that's playing up about maybe 2 years in the Pee Wee League football. The guy it's still comical to me, just like his physical stature over everyone else. So, just comparing that off of the one game and the only film that we've gotten to see, it should be a favorable. I would definitely say it's favorable for Ben Roethlisberger. He should be able to channel Ryan Tannehill at the very least. And I would think even with his receivers, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Adam Humphries, these guys all had pretty decent days too. Davis, out of nowhere, former first-round pick, caught 7 of his 8 targets for 101 yards. Humphries caught 6 of 7 for 47. A.J. Brown caught 5 for 39. So, there was a couple of passes to some of the guys out of the backfield like Henry too. So they were able to exploit the Broncos offense pretty much however they wanted. Also, the Titans converted on 4th down. They were 44% on 3rd down, and they were 2 of 3 in the red zone with 2 of 2 with goal to go. They were 100% on that, and they got a total of they ran 78 offensive plays in a game they only won by 2 points. And of course, there was a late score by Gordon. So again, it's kind of like the Browns-Bengals yesterday. There was some garbage time there, and it makes the game look closer than what it was. The Titans were kind of coasting there at the end. Other than the fact that this game should have been 30-14 if Steven Gostkowski was able to make any extra points or field goals. So that was really rough for the Titans. I know we're not really talking about the Titans, but just comparatively, just trying to say, the Broncos should have lost a little more than they did. They also had 5 minutes lesser of time of possession, and their head coach doesn't know how to use timeouts. So if you ever criticize Mike Tomlin for clock management, don't worry. This guy's willing to give us the game if it comes down to the final minute or two. So I think that's a pretty good spot there. Brian, the line on this game now, my bookie has this giving the Broncos 7.5 with an over-under of 40.5 there. So before, give that some thought for a second, because the winning season returns at my bookie. It means doubling your first deposit. It means insane props, epic bonuses, and the craziest cross-sport wagers. So those props, I still don't know if anyone's been fined coach-wise for the mask yet, but I noticed Kevin Stefanski had his basically glued to his face, and I like how they have their initials on it too, so they don't actually swap them like we might see grade schoolers doing or something. So, but anyways, you want to bet on those things and more. They even have, we said we don't, since we interjected a little bit of politics, we might as well mention you could bet on politics too, and who wins certain races. So you want to put your money there, go right ahead. You could do this all season long with live sports and betting live sports at my bookie. So that means your action-packed Sundays, your huge cash prizes, it's all back. Get in on the action. Use a promo code SteelCity and double your first deposit. New players get up to $1,000 in free play, so that's going to add more excitement to the sports you love, the games you bet. So bet with the best this NFL season for your chance to win big as part of this winning season that begins today only at MyBookie. When you double your first deposit using the promo code SteelCity, over under 40.5. You didn't get too excited about the $1,000 bonus. I have a feeling you already did that.
I missed it. I missed it. I missed it. I was waiting. I was actually waiting, and then I got distracted.
40.5. Is this
40.5?
Is this sitting towards what I was thinking, that the Steelers win this game 28-9 or something, 28-10, 27-10? Do the Steelers get to 30? Do the Steelers get to 30?
I don't know. Let me put it this way. Here's the thing. Should they get to 30? I'll tell you this way. I think if there were fans in the stands, they'd get to 30. And the reason I say that is because I think they get fired up and they get, you get a little more excitement. Ben gets, his oats get a little riled, and maybe he takes a deep threat, to somebody that he doesn't necessarily do without that extra incentive. Maybe they take a risk and make a receiver make a play. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. They certainly have the offense and the potential to get to 30 points. I'm just not overly impressed with Denver's defense, considering they lost Von Miller. AJ Boye is I think on IR now too. I just don't know. I think the advantage is definitely all Steelers on this. But at 40, It's do you think the Broncos can score is really what it is. If the Broncos are going to put up 14 points, then you take the over. If they're going to put up less than 10, you take the under. That's your question in my mind. If you think the Broncos are going to put up more than 10 points in this game, you take the over.
Well, I think the toughest thing here is looking up and down all of the lines here on my bookie. This game has the lowest over-under total of the entire slate for the remainder of the week, which is very intriguing.
That surprised me. They didn't score. The Broncos didn't score much the last game. Why would you think they're going to score much now?
I mean, they got to 14, and the Steelers got to 26. So, I mean, just going by what they
40.
had last week, that's 40. Now, the Steelers gave up 16. If you think the Steelers' defense could be more involved heavily in turning the ball over or scoring, for that matter, I mean, this is something they could run away with. This is a very intriguing one because we were pretty much sold on the under last week, but for this being the lowest over-under in the entire league this week, I got to start leaning towards the overs on several of these games. I understand these are kind of stinketh when you're talking maybe 49ers versus Jets, Bills, Dolphins, Vikings, Colts, Giants and Bears are at 42 even. Even just
what was the over under on last night's game? Not that it matters.
You know what? It's not. It's actually not listed now. I think they pull it off after that. I could probably find it in some archive somewhere. I would have been interested in that too. I bet you 65 covered the over by far.
I'm sure it did. I kind of feel like, look, I kind of feel like maybe you should lean. I agree. I think you lean towards the over on this game. Just because I think the Steelers are going to score, and I don't know if the Broncos are.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Steelers, if you feel the Steelers can get the 30, I think I definitely against it. For a professional football team to not get to at least double-digit points is tremendously pathetic, or it's just that much of a trouncing.
Yep.
You know, I look even at last year's anemic output. The only two games that the Steelers didn't put up at least 10 points was against the Browns on Thursday Night Football on that short week where Mason Rudolph turned over the ball 4 times. They lost Connor, they lost Juju, they lost Deontay Johnson. They had nobody on offense that could play. And then the opener against the Patriots, famous for everyone dropping the ball. So, they didn't do anything against the Patriots, and you could probably throw both of those out as kind of being not only just the real outliers, but you even look at the Steelers, more than half of their games, even with the kind of offense that they had, we're looking at, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games of 20 or more points last year. And I think that's fairly favorable. Now, you can't do the same kind of and that's with the bad offense is what I'm saying. So you got to at least think maybe Denver is a little bit better than that, but the Steelers' defense is tremendous too. So I think if the Steelers were to get to like 27, you got to think there might be some garbage time in there. I think it obviously comes down to the fourth quarter, and we'll see who's making some money. But that's a very tough one. I would probably take the over, but I'm going to also say this is like the sucker bet, you know what I mean? But I have enough faith in the Steelers. I mean, I'm looking at the Denver defense, which is where we were going to go next with this, because obviously they're going to be lined up against a patchwork Steelers offensive line. And you've got Shelby Harris, Mike Purcell, Jarrell Casey, Jeremiah Tachu, Bradley Chubb, Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell. Those are your front seven. Bradley Chubb is a guy that's he's trying to come back. He had an injury himself over the offseason or some type of surgery, I think. But regardless, he's trying to get back into form himself. Losing Von Miller was huge when it came to this team. And you even look at who they have that didn't practice. If you thought Mark Barron was great, well, this is the guy that they have over here. He was going to be sliding in. I think he would have been starting if he's not banged up with this team. Right. Josie Jewell was a guy we kind of liked in college, but now after seeing him, I'm kind of glad they have somebody like Devin Bush instead. Josie Jewell just isn't the same kind of athletic roaming guy in the middle of the field there. So I think there's going to be.
I don't think anybody would have wanted him over Devin Bush.
Well, no. But what I'm saying is like when we think about all the inside linebackers over the years since Shazier's gotten hurt. Get this guy. Got to get this guy. Leighton Vander Esch, and now he's hurting out. You know what I mean? It's guys like that. You see some other Rashaan Evans or Tremaine Edmonds, and I think Bush. Again, the Steelers tend to get it right. I'm not saying any of those guys have been bad. And then there's whoever else ended up going with the Bengals and, Mac Wilson with the Browns. And the Steelers have gotten it right. Josie Jewell's kind of in that category. He's not in a higher tier there. He's capable of being a starter, but I think he's going to get abused. And it could be abused by the run game. I think it'll be abused by the pass game. I think the center of the field is very key here. Justin Simmons is I like him as a free safety. You have Kareem Jackson as well, Bryce Callahan, AJ Boye. He just went on IR, right? I know he's been hurt. Yeah. He's on IR officially. So now they've got to throw somebody else out there as one of their corners. Good luck against this the weapons the Steelers have. You're just going to have to hope. I don't know if Vic Fangio, he is a defensive guy. I don't know that they will bring enough pressure. They allowed Tannehill to have the game that he just had, and they only gave up one sack. They only gave up the one sack, and it's just and it was 2 yards. So if I go back and watch that game, it might not even be much of a sack. It might be one of those things where the pocket collapses and he just doesn't get back to the line of scrimmage. So Ben should be upright, even with some of the patchwork. Chokes Okorafor coming in for Zach Banner. This was the or designation.
Chokes? Don't call him Chokes.
I didn't call him Chokes. Chooks. I cannot say his full name, Chukwuwarma Okorafor. So Chooks. Everybody calls him Chooks because they don't want to say it either. So that it gives me a free license to do that as well. But he had the or designation, and then they announced Banner as being the starter later on, the previous week, heading into last week's game. So this is where Tomlin said he had 2 starter-capable guys, and you got to hope that with the coach's vision that he just wasn't, talking up somebody and that there won't be any lapse there. And I won't say that Banner had the most tremendous game. As the game went on, I thought he did better. But yeah, we're going to see. When we got Dotson out there for Wisniewski, and Dotson didn't play a whole lot either. I'm going to pull that up. I got the snap counts. But you got the guys out there, and all of a sudden, the Steelers are playing ball control, clock control football. And they didn't really skip a beat. Dotson ended up playing 6 offensive plays to Okorafor's 9. Nice. But you had those guys out there. That's 9 and 14% of the time. You didn't really see anything that was too insignificant. The Steelers did have the game pretty much under control too, so I'm not sure that you would. But at the same time, the Giants' defense knew what was coming and couldn't stop it with the Snell cow. I like that. I'm not sure who came up with it. I saw somebody tweet that out, though, Monday night or Tuesday morning, the Snell cow. We may have James Conner. So it sounds like he avoided a high ankle sprain. And maybe they just put him on the sideline because they didn't want to risk further injury. Maybe they have the kid gloves on him. So we'll see what he ends up doing. There's a lot of people who turned on him real quick. If he comes out here against this Broncos team and puts up 150 all-purpose yards, it's going to shut everybody up pretty quick. I'm not saying he's going to. I don't know if they'll just let him sit for a week and rest or what may be the case. They may feel comfortable with Snell. They may still dress him. They may even do a little timeshare type thing. But Snell looked pretty good in that role too. Who was really absent here was Jalen Samuels. I thought Snell and Samuels did good in pass protection from what I saw, particularly Snell also. Going back to Monday night. So I'm not really too concerned as far as the run or the pass game with the Steelers, provided, these young men got to step up. I mean, Dotson's a rookie, and Okorafor, has only had the one start. Really, the only playing time he had was last year, his 3rd year now, and he's going to be in this role. So the right side of this offensive line is probably where they're going to want to bring the pressure. We're going to see what happens. Vance McDonald, Eric Ebron, are these guys going to chip? Are they going to block? Throw Snell or Samuels or somebody else out there to throw some blocks. Just got to keep Ben upright. That's the only thing. I think some people are a little worried about that. I wrote an article about it. People, of course, answered the headline. I asked if they were in trouble. I don't believe that they're necessarily in trouble, but they can't afford any more losses than what they have already.
That's exactly correct. Look, I really like Kevin Dotson. I liked the pick when it happened. I like what he can do, but as a rookie, that's going to be your point of weakness. That's where they're going to attack this line. Is they're going to try and confuse Kevin Dotson. I think Chooks will be fine, but they're going to have to help that side of the line. Now, whether that means you keep Derek Watt in more of the game and use him as a blocker to keep people off of Ben, or whether they can handle it. Look, Kevin Dotson, as I keep saying, is a grown-ass young man. And he's a big boy and a big, strong boy. And, he's going to manhandle some guys. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm not real concerned. I'm a little concerned because the good news is it's the right-hand side, right? So Ben's going to be able to see what's coming at him, as opposed to if the left side of the line was weak. Now, that's Ben's blind side. That's a problem. But so you look at it that way and you say, all right, I think that they're going to be able to handle that. I think, with you talked about Josie Jewell. This is a game where I look for a lot more out of the tight ends, especially down the middle of the field. They need to be able to get open and do some things because they need to be able to take advantage of what I think are slower inside linebackers, especially if Mark Barron can't go. For this team.
And we know his strengths and weaknesses already, as do the Steelers. So
yes,
also
absolutely.
susceptible.
Yeah. So I feel like this is a potential breakout game for somebody like Eric Ebron if he can get his the right mindset and if they can get in sync. Putting somebody like Juju in the slot. And bringing him in from the outside and letting Deontay Johnson run at the outside along with maybe Chase Claypool, pull Juju in, or maybe even put Chase in the slot. Move these guys around a little bit. I think the middle of the field could be open for a lot of things. We'll have to see how it plays out, but that's the way I look at it. I feel like the Steelers can put up some points against this team, and while I have concerns about the offensive line, I still think they're going to be able to throw the ball pretty well. Now, as far as the running game, I won't be surprised if Snell gets the nod and starts this game, but I don't want to say on a short leash, but is there in the sense of this may be much more of a split workload than we normally see, because if Connor is they're not going to want Connor to get more injured, right? And we've talked about it the whole offseason that there's a level of fragility. And that's not even a fair statement. It's the way that he runs exposes him to some damage. So, I understand all that, and so it won't surprise me if they protect him a little bit this week. But if Snell is not the same Snell that we saw last week, if he's not getting it done, then they could move back to Connor. I will be surprised if Anthony McFarland is not active this game.
Yeah.
Because I really think that Mike Tomlin might, they mentioned it, they had an extra active spot and they didn't use it. I think that this is a game where they might decide to do that. But I just don't think they have enough offensive linemen to add another one. That's actually the question. Can you have 8 offensive linemen active? Because that's the only way you get those extra spots, right? And with losing 2 of them, I don't know. Well, do we got enough guys?
I mean, I understand. Tomlin was asked about that. J.C. Hassenauer, and that's a guy that's been in the system a little bit. He was Alliance American Football. A guy that they plucked from Birmingham like 2 years ago or whatever. And then when that league folded, they snapped him up immediately. They
re-signed Hawkins too.
Yeah, they brought him in off the Texans practice squad.
So he has to be on. It doesn't mean he has to be active, but he has to be on the 53. So
yeah, because you took him from the practice squad. Not only that, you need to have whatever it is, 8. Is it 8 offensive linemen minimum or 9 in order to have the 55 active? I think it's 8 also. I always forget, and this is exactly it. If I can't remember, and we've been talking about this since summer, some people were criticizing that Mike Tomlin didn't have the full complement of whatever, and it's like, well, they went on the road and they played it safe. They played it comfortable because you don't really want to get fined or have your hand slapped from the first game if you get something wrong, too. And apparently, he doesn't come out and say it because then he would get fined more. But yeah. I think that Coach Tomlin has a little bit of frustration with New York and the league office, because it's just one of those things where if it's not communicated properly, they're still sending out memos about different things with travel and testing the COVID thing. There's just so much. It's so overwhelming. And they even had some of the strength and conditioning guys from around the league talking about it earlier in the year, that they were more focused on the virus stuff than getting some of the actual conditioning and things that they should be doing or would be doing normally if you didn't have a pandemic surrounding this football season. And I think that's another reason why you're seeing some of the guys that aren't in football shape getting banged up and getting hurt. And it's not just the Steelers. It's a whole bunch of teams all over the league, different players, star players in some cases. In my case, fantasy, my 3 of my top 4 picks, Brian. I mean, it's crazy, I got a guy on IR. I got Connor, and I don't even know if he's going to play. And then I also got Michael Thomas. And then they're talking about maybe he could be. He could play, but then, last night you got people saying, well, he's going to be out for like 2-3 weeks. I think he has a high ankle sprain thing too. That would be Michael Thomas, who I used to get confused the name with Matthew Thomas, who was with the Steelers, but Michael Thomas of the Saints, not to be confused with that Mike Thomas who caught a TD last night. I don't know anything about that guy. So, anyways, I mean, it's tough, we're homers, we're biased. I get it. Somebody else is going to listen to this. They're not very objective. There isn't a whole lot to get too excited or afraid about with like the Broncos. I look a week ahead to the Texans and I see Deshaun Watson, and that's something where I'm like, okay, there's a guy you got to stop. Like last week I was like, you got to stop Saquon Barkley, but he's pretty much the whole focal point. With the Broncos, there isn't that guy just yet. You still don't know that Cortland Sutton's even going to play. Drew Lock is still in his formative years. So he could be, a solid quarterback, but we won't know that until about the middle of the year. And, he may have had some first game jitters, and now they go on the road and, they got to do what everybody else does here and play in these empty stadiums, and they got to deal with the Steelers defense that is just insanely fast. That was another Pro Football Focus statistic or something else in the Twitterverse there, was how fast the Steelers defense was. And Vince Williams recorded the fastest sack. Did you see that? That was the next-gen stats.
Boom, baby. That was the boom, baby.
That was out of a cannon, and we were just kind of making fun of that. We didn't realize he had it in him. You talk about all these other guys that are like track athletes out there, and Vince Williams is the fastest sack in the entire league last week.
Yeah, there you go.
That's amazing. So, I don't know. Those are my closing thoughts. I hate to give the scores and everything like that, but I was just merely looking at an over-under perspective. I mean, if you get somewhere in the ballpark of it's tough for me to say even giving up touchdowns. The Broncos, who's their kicker again? McManus? Brandon McManus. That guy's got a pretty solid leg on him. They could get some field goals. I don't think they hold him under double digits necessarily. It all depends on the game script here too. I'm not necessarily looking for Ben Roethlisberger to maybe have 300-yard game. He could get in the ballpark maybe. I said he wasn't going to do it last Monday, so I'm trying to look for my very bold prediction of this week. I think mine is going to lean on defense. No, mine's not going to lean on defense. I'm going to go with? I'm going to go with, let's say about 3-4 receptions and 50 yards, maybe a touchdown for Chase Claypool. That's going to be my bold prediction.
Shut up. Stealing my damn thunder.
Did I steal your thunder?
On the bastard.
On the web, I'm going to be talking about defense. But I just have a feeling about Claypool this week.
I think Chase Claypool gets his first touchdown this week. Absolutely. That's one of my bold predictions. I'm going to say that the group that got shut out of sacks last week, which would be the outside linebackers, are going to get some this week. I think both Bud and TJ get a sack. So those are my 2 bold predictions. As far as the score goes, I'm gonna give you the prediction I put on all of my Facebook predict the score groups. Steelers 80 jillion, The Broncos -12.
Oh, so you're covering.
No, they're -12. They're actually going to get negative points. I don't know how you do it, but
it still covers the bajillion still covers the over and the spread.
Yeah, bajillion.
Yep,
80 bajillion points for the Steelers. Because I don't know scores, whatever. The Steelers will win, and that's all I care about.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Claypool, believe it or not, was out there for 19 plays, a third of the offensive plays last week, last Monday.
Look,
so
they're going to grow off of that. Remember the trajectory of all of the Steelers' young receivers. As soon as they make that play that gets Ben that level of trust, all of a sudden, it's not so much you're a rookie anymore. They're going to start to trust him to do things. He gets another set, doesn't make mistakes, because that'll set him back. If he makes some mistakes and leaves Ben hanging out there, that'll be a problem. But the way that the things have been reported on here, it doesn't look like that's the kind of kid that he is. It looks like his head is on square. He knows what he's doing, and he's a smart football guy. So I'm looking for him to make strides in this second game and actually catch a few more balls and get his first touchdown.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing even with Deontay Johnson, because, I mean, I don't know that any of them can have big games. I just don't know that any of them will have a 100-yard game, because there's so many guys to throw the ball to. You already mentioned the tight ends maybe breaking out. Even if you have like Connor or Snell, they may get a few passes that come their way too. So that's why I'm going a little more conservative with Claypool, and I think he could probably score either off of a gainer, or he has a pretty solid, let's say, third down conversion or something like that. Moves the chains, gets 20-some yards on one catch, and then maybe another catch is down in the red zone. They stack him up against what will be a mismatched secondary. So, hey, Brian, thanks for joining me once again, my friend. We're up against it, so looking forward to some football on Sunday.
Absolutely, and I'm thrilled that it's a 1:00 game, so we can do the pre-post, whatever. The podcast after won't be at like midnight.
Yeah, that's always good, because you could tell when we're getting loopy and losing steam when we do the night ones, and that's precisely what happens. So, all right, folks, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. We encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.